You remember it clearly, the words, the tone, the way the conversation ended, and yet something doesn't feel right anymore. You're remembering it wrong. That's not what I said. That's not how it happened. And suddenly, you're not sure anymore. You try to explain it. You repeat what you remember. You describe the moment exactly as it felt, but the response doesn't change. That's not what I said. That's not how it happened. You're remembering it wrong. At first, you push back. You feel certain. You know what you heard. You know what you felt. So you explain it again, slower this time, more carefully, trying to make sure nothing gets misunderstood. But something strange happens. The more you explain, the more uverino they deny it, calm, certain, unshaken, as if your version of reality simply doesn't exist. Sometimes they offer a different version, a softer version, a cleaner version, a version where nothing was wrong. I didn't mean it like that. You're taking it out of context. You're twisting what I said. And now there are two versions of the same moment, yours and theirs. And the moment two versions exist, something inside you starts trying to resolve it, not by choosing one immediately, but by questioning both. You go back again, replaying the moment, listening to the tone in your memory, trying to remember the exact words, trying to reconstruct the feeling. Sometimes you even begin adjusting your own version, not fully, just slightly. Maybe the tone wasn't that sharp. Maybe I focused on the wrong part. Maybe I misunderstood what they meant. Small changes, but enough to make the memory feel less solid. And the more you revisit it, the more flexible it becomes. Because each time you question a memory, you don't just recall it, you rebuild it. And with each reconstruction, certainty becomes weaker. At some point, it's no longer about what actually happened, it's about which version feels more stable. And often that becomes the version that is repeated with more confidence. At first, you try to resolve it logically. You go back to the details, you reconstruct the conversation, you search for exact wording, trying to prove that your memory is accurate. But the more you analyze, the less stable it begins to feel. Because memory isn't fixed. It changes when it's questioned. And when someone confidently presents a different version, your brain starts trying to reconcile both. Maybe the tone was different. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I focused on the wrong part. And that's where the shift begins, not in the facts, but in your certainty. Sometimes the rewriting happens immediately. You mention something that just happened minutes ago, something you clearly remember, and the response comes instantly. That didn't happen. And for a second, everything pauses, because the moment is still fresh. You're sure of it. But the certainty in their voice makes you hesitate. Other times it happens later. You bring up something from the past, a moment that stayed with you, something that felt important, and when you mention it, they look confused, almost surprised. That never happened. And the reaction feels so natural that you begin questioning yourself. There are moments when they don't fully deny it, they just reshape it. That's not what I meant. You're focusing on the wrong part. You're exaggerating. And slowly, the meaning of the moment starts changing. The words may stay the same, but the interpretation shifts. And with it, your confidence in what actually happened. Over time, something begins to happen inside you. You stop trusting your memory immediately. You pause before saying, I remember it differently. You soften your statements. You add disclaimers. Maybe I'm wrong. I might be remembering this incorrectly. Even when you felt certain just moments before. You sometimes stop bringing things up entirely, not because you forgot them, but because proving them feels impossible. Every time you try, the outcome is the same. Your version is dismissed, replaced, or rewritten. And slowly, something deeper changes. You begin relying less on your own memory and more on the other person's version, because they sound certain, because they don't hesitate, because they never question themselves. And confidence can be persuasive, even when it replaces reality. This is one of the core mechanisms of gaslighting. It doesn't just challenge your memory, it replaces it, because memory is how we understand reality. And when your memory becomes unstable, your sense of reality becomes unstable with it. There is a psychological reason this works. Memory is reconstructive. It is not a perfect recording. Every time we recall a moment, we rebuild it. And when new information is introduced, that reconstruction can change. And that change doesn't feel dramatic. It feels subtle, almost unnoticeable, like something slightly shifting out of place. At first, you still feel certain. The memory is clear, the moment is intact, but once it has been questioned, something small begins to move. You don't fully lose the memory, you just stop fully trusting it. You start holding it more carefully, as if it might be wrong, as if it needs confirmation. And the more often this happens, the more your brain learns a new pattern. Don't trust the first version. Check again, reconsider, adjust. Over time, that hesitation becomes automatic, not just in important moments, but in small ones too. Things that once felt obvious now require verification. And once that pattern is established, certainty becomes rare, not because reality changed, but because your relationship with it did. So when someone repeatedly tells you that your version is wrong, your brain starts adjusting, not because it's true, but because it's trying to resolve the conflict. And over time, that adjustment becomes automatic. You question first, you trust later, if at all. There are clear signs when this pattern develops. You hesitate before trusting your memory. You replay conversations repeatedly. You search for proof, messages, details, exact wording. You double-check before saying anything. You start asking other people for confirmation. Do you remember it like that? Just to make sure you're not mistaken, you begin softening your version of events, leaving room for doubt, even when you once felt certain. And sometimes you stop trusting your memory altogether. But there is something important to understand. Not every conflicting version means you're wrong. Not every disagreement means you misunderstood. Sometimes the version that keeps changing is not yours. Because rewriting the past is one of the most effective ways to control the present. If the past becomes unstable, then nothing feels certain anymore. So if you find yourself replaying moments, questioning memories that once felt clear, or hesitating before trusting what you remember, pause for a moment, not to prove anything, not to win the argument, but to notice the pattern. Because when your memory starts to feel unreliable, it may not be because it is. It may be because it has been repeatedly challenged, rewritten, replaced. And the moment you see that clearly is the moment something begins to shift. And the moment you see it is the moment the erosion stops.